Alright guys, we are back with another Wars like Apes Warfare, and I'm just gonna come out and say it, this might be the best one yet. This game's being co-developed by GigaQuest and Stoic Entertainment, which is not to be confused with Stoic Studio, who made the Banner Saga series, and it definitely took a bit of googling to find more info out about them. As for GigaQuest, it was co-founded by Tae-Hoon Oh, who you might recognize as the lead artist from Infinity Ward between 2004 and 2014. Yeah, this guy made these guns in these games at this company, which you played at this house. And apparently, he studied to become a mechanical engineer and changed his mind and went to the Academy of Art in San Francisco instead, which seems like a pretty wild career change to me, but honestly, I respect that. I've already given many criticisms of my playthrough of the game, so I'll focus more on any new ones I found since doing some low turn completions for fun, so let's get right into it. We are on a groovy, jaunty journey to get back the art core that was taken by the humans, Planet of the Apes style. Chaos ensues, conflict begins, and our poor soldiers are the ones to pay the price for my S rank, or 3-star rating, and maybe there's a secret threat in the shadows yet to be revealed. The sound design is a bit bare bones at the moment, but most units are distinct enough. I could probably tell half of what's going on in this game if my eyes were closed. The music is very groovy and funky, and I'm here for it. Definitely an underutilized genre for character themes, in my opinion. I think the options menu needs more levels between 0 and max because my 1 is too quiet but my 2 is too loud, but I've talked a little with them and they've taken notes on my playthrough, so they're aware of the issue. I also appreciate the little fanfare that plays when you win a level. Hits me right in the dopamine receptors. These graphics are a delight to look at. This game oozes its own style, and the map and aesthetics are very visually appealing. It really has that comic book charm going for it. Pretty much every unit is distinct from one another, and I could tell them all apart at a glance, even zoomed out. Though I will say that the troopers and snipers could use a little bit of differentiation. I do, however, have an issue where the cargo, landers, and APCs have way too small of pictures of which units are inside them in the top right. They could definitely be bigger, or maybe place them above the unit while it's selected, something like that. I only bring it up because while I don't personally play PvP, I know that the turn timer is a big part of it, so being able to see what's coming your way quicker would go a long way. There's also no detailed battles like you have in Advanced Wars. It's all on the overmap, which I don't mind and prefer for time purposes, but someone else might like seeing the soldiers blasting one another in a little cutscene. Hopefully, they add distinct vehicle designs as well between the apes and humans going forward. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Currently, only the infantry units have different sprites. Apes Warfare is very faithful to Advanced Wars, perhaps too much so. If you know your Advanced Wars damage chart, you'll probably know what's going on here. And if I were to put it on a scale of Advanced Wars successors between faithful and experimental, it's definitely on the faithful side, Wargroove on the edge of experimental. Over here. No, over here. I really like how it shows you the damage you're likely to do and the damage you're likely to receive on an attack. It's a bit strange seeing the enemy counterattack showing a maximum luck hit in return, but it actually does help map out how bad things could be. There aren't any COs here of day-to-day passive differences, which might be a downside for some people, but it makes balancing for PvP way simpler, which seems to be a focus for the developers of this game. There's a few new units here. Snipers snipe, B-2 bombers bomb, and drones spontaneously combust anytime infantry looks at them funny. Snipers are pretty good against infantry spam and have 2 to 6 range, which increases to 7 when they're on a mountain. The B2 stands for Bomber 2 because the first was so nice they made it twice, and now your Bomber 2 comes with 400% more AoE. Guaranteed to cure what ails ya, if what ails ya is a large clump of enemy units. They have more movement and less fuel than regular bombers and are the most expensive unit in the game at 22,000 funds. As for drones, they're actually a pretty solid counter to heavy tanks as they basically do 15% damage to every single unit in the game equally, aside from snipers which they just absolutely body for some reason, and vice versa. Poor guys just can't get along. They could definitely be a threat in big swarms, and speaking of swarms, drone swarms are a bit unique. They're a paralyzing unit that can be broken or useless depending on the situation. For example, you can lock down an enemy factory or airport for a turn, or disable the unit entirely, which can't actually fire back despite the display saying that they can. I'm sure in PvP they're quite strong as more expensive units take over, but then again, infantry spam tends to be the name of the game in Wars likes, so drone swarms might have reduced effectiveness. There's also warthogs, which are 50% wart, 50% hog, and 100% anti-tank air units that attack twice, once before and after the enemy counterattack, if applicable. They can also be targeted by infantry units, unlike the other planes, and they don't counterattack twice on defense, but have a very respectable 12,000 fund price point. And finally, we have the Carrier to resupply your naval and air units, much to your land unit's disappointment. In Apes Warfare, APCs don't restock air or naval units, carriers do, and as such, air units tend to run out of fuel or ammo quite frequently on land/air maps. It's definitely noticeable in a few campaign levels before you unlock the carrier, which honestly might be a good thing from a PvP perspective, but when your air units are just heaps of flying junk, it kinda sucks. You also lose half fuel for any movements you make for all units if you don't commit to a move, so if you're a loud thinker like me, your units might end up stranded when you need them most. This is a bit more prevalent with terrain changes, especially in snow, which makes properties cost extra movement. And let me tell you, the terrain in this game has some really neat ideas. In particular, footbridges and trenches that can only be traversed by infantry helps open a whole new subset of land combat like infantry-only flanks. And destroyed roads create choke points that limit things like tank spamming so that indirect units get a bit more time to shine. Snow strands naval units where they are and makes water tiles traversable by land units, with tread units like tanks slowing down and tire units like rockets or patrols moving normally. There's also lava that's used in a single level currently, which slows down all land units and has a few separate stages dealing 0, 1, and 2 damage per player turn to land and naval units on top of it. Some other terrain types include jungles and cloud mountains, which actually hide units, even without fog, and is probably why the half movement field cost cancel is in the game. Hidden units also don't take damage from superpowers, which function more like missile silos. They also shook up the rocket formula by limiting the range to 4, but making them AoE, so clubbing becomes less viable later in the game. You also gain a fourth of the cost of a unit when you destroy it, which opens up risky plays to afford higher tier units earlier. As for the controls, these are some of the slickest controls in the genre. This game runs, okay? It might be one of the only hex/grid-based strategy games with a very pleasant mouse and keyboard experience once you get used to it. This is a solid product, and controllers function just as well. The unit movements are fast enough that I don't mind how long they take, though I wouldn't mind an option to speed up everything, especially the capturing. You can click again to make it go quicker, but sometimes you just want to click it and forget it. The experience is very streamlined so as to avoid waste, and the game runs very well. I haven't noticed a single bit of lag, though sometimes there's a bit of a delay when you click a bit too fast, but that's to be expected. If there's criticism to be had of the gameplay, it would be that levels and objectives really aren't that varied. Lab levels are okay, but I think they should be winnable with a route victory, not force you to capture them. There's no completely pre-deployed levels in Apes Warfare either, despite property healing being free. In my personal opinion, this is one of the biggest ways to change up the Wars-like formula that should expand more within the genre. In the main Advance Wars trilogy alone, you had capture battles, defend the unit, destroy the unit, HQ capture, route, destroy the cannon, laser crystal, defend until time runs out, and more. Objectives that fundamentally change how you play the game. That being said, some of them didn't stick, for good reason, defend the unit, but since power and technique scoring don't matter currently in Apes Warfare, I think they can use that to their advantage. For example, maybe a battle of attrition, where you have to get 4 artillery in certain spots to form a defensive perimeter story-wise to hold back the humans, or maybe using button tiles to alter the map terrain, closing off entrances or opening new ones into some city you have to defend or attack. An escort-type mission like XCOM has with a unique VIP unit, maybe a prologue mission from the human side to open up our story. And speaking of, here's where Apes Warfare falls a bit short in its early access. The narrative is probably the weakest part about the game. It's really as simple as MacGuffin art core makes the conflict start. I understand they're trying to keep it light and unserious, and this is less of a priority than making sure the game is functional, which is fair. But going forward, a decent story could go a long way. I, surprisingly, haven't watched any Planet of the Apes movies, so I'm big dumb on this front if it relates to the game besides Caesar's name, but I'm not currently captivated. That being said, despite the narrative being weak, I think that the characters and their designs are pretty solid. They serve as decent foils to one another. You've got Caesar as the pretty chill ape commander in contrast to generic action man Jack Smith. Air Force pilot smashes plucky pilot attitude against Leo's more burlesque and cantankerous demeanor, and Mandor's wizened old naval grandmaster in contrast to Kevin's crotchety old man. Most of the mission dialogue is just quips back and forth and doesn't serve too much of a purpose, which will hopefully be remedied when they fully release the game later. But we do need some character interactions in my opinion, because I have questions, okay? Questions like, how do these characters even know each other? We know Mandor and Kevin have a history, and Kevin lost an eye and a hand, but that's about it. Where are they from on this map, and how does that relate to why they became admirals instead of the army? That is, if they even have a separation between Army and Navy in the universe, which might not be the case. For other characters, were they conscripted into the Army? Are they volunteers? Are there sub-tribes of apes or humans with differing views on conflicts? Or who specialize in different ways, like a fishing port where the sailors are recruited from? And what's the story behind Smash and Leo anyways? What are the politics behind these countries? Are they even countries? Is interaction between apes and humans forbidden, which causes this conflict? And will that be reconciled as the story goes on? Maybe in some human-ape team-up against an external existential threat? Is there a wider world and this is just part of it? And the most important question of all, who the heck is placing these mines everywhere? Because the humans are running into them too, so it can't be them. Kidding aside, for recommendations and fixes, it'll only be new things I didn't already cover. And apparently the AI can drop off from oversea tiles, but the player can't. But I think it'd be neat if players could also drop over from water tiles as well. The transport game for Warriors Likes has always been a bit underdeveloped in my opinion. I do think Apes Warfare needs a restart turn or save function, maybe checkpoints. That or a global speed up option. Personally, I play all turn-based games on their fastest speeds, and sometimes even faster on my totally legit hardware, in the case of some of my Advanced Wars videos, which has the unfortunate side effect of ruining the character themes. So hint hint, wink wink devs. At least 2x speed is the way to go. The real meat of turn-based games is always going to be the thinking math part, and the unit movements and actions are cutscenes, which are fine the first 50 times you see them, but they get old quick. Some other small things that could be looked at are a new cursor. I'm also not sure if reefs were intended to be traversed by naval units or not, and what they're for. They can also be hidden in by air units during fog, fun fact. You can't scroll around the map during the little capture screen, which is probably a GUI issue, and there should definitely be a way to see how much terrain costs to traverse for all movement types. It even seems like there's some fractional movement costs, as seen by troopers/snipers, being able to cross 2 jungles side by side. Drones also say that they reveal jungle tiles near them, and I guess they do, but no better than any other unit, but it would make them quite valuable on maps that feature heavy jungle. I do think there needs to be a way to restock air units easier on land/air maps, since APCs can't, whether that's a Days of Ruin rig for temporary airports, a refueling aircraft, or even faster superpower charge for WD-40, doesn't matter. And speaking of, superpowers are a bit underwhelming until they aren't. They usually don't come into play until later, but are basically a stern meteor on demand once they do. Definitely need some time to cook, but not a bad idea overall. I'd also appreciate a terrain type that all units can cross, like shores and bridges in Cartel's War Room Challenge 2 I just played, where naval and land units coexisted. Naval warfare is criminally underutilized in Wars Likes, so I'd appreciate it being a bit more involved. And while the AI does need some work, I do like how its aggression makes route victories a bit quicker instead of having to hunt down the last few enemies, so I'm not always forced to go for an HQ capture for a lowest turn completion. Now I have played a lot of turn-based games, and especially Wars Likes in my time. Many completely outside of the videos I've posted, which are mostly Advanced Wars and some War Group. I even played Commander's Attack of the Genomes back on the Xbox 360 arcade, and good luck figuring out that game even exists, okay? So I've been around. And overall, I think Apes Warfare might legitimately be the best Advanced Wars successor yet. I like War Group, don't get me wrong, but the AI is a bit frustrating to play against, but also really dumb at the same time with their commander, which equals free wins all the time. It's a bit unsatisfying. Earth vs. Mars got a little wild with the asymmetrical warfare and every unit having an ability, but they had some good ideas, and the game speed slider, ooh, the game speed slider. War Tactics was neat, and I like the teleporters and reactivators, but it definitely needs some time to cook. But Apes Warfare, it's already slick, okay? The art design is great, I love all the visuals in this game. The map board itself has clarity and function. The AI could probably use some tweaks, sure, but it's very hard to make a competent AI that doesn't play campy, which actually detracts from the fun of the game, mind you. You can always add difficulty levels to the AI as well, or AI profiles like Advanced Wars does going forward with a few COs. The controls are great. They made a really pleasant control scheme that's not too stiff, not too loose. Also, you can pause on the enemy's turn so you're not held hostage, which is always a plus. The lab mode needs some work, and I think there could be more objective types as there's very little variety currently, but what's here is solid. The sounds are decent. I feel like I could tell most of what's going on if my eyes closed, although they could differentiate unit sounds a bit more. The music is funky and groovy, and I love that about it, and all the character themes are very fitting. Their attitudes and designs line up as well. I do think there should be more to the options menu, not just for the sound levels, but also hotkey remapping with a separate confirm key for unit movements and end turn, because I've definitely ended my turn too early a few times already tapping enter to confirm a unit move, since it's faster than clicking with a mouse, which, if you didn't know, works even if you're not hovering the unit menu. Other than that, I hope once they've polished the game, they come back and make a compelling story, which is definitely the weakest part about the game. I feel like there is a lack of stakes in this art core getting stolen, and the characters on either side don't interact with each other. The dialogue is quite literally just 4 lines at the start of every level, with some of them having a mid-level bit, like when it changes to snow for the first time, or lava. But overall, I had a very pleasant time playing this game. I highly recommend it if you like Advance Wars, or even just turn-based strategy games in general. It's a solid product, especially considering this is technically their first game, so well done. This game does what many turn-based games fail to do, and that's make it actually fun and fluid to play with its control scheme, but trust me on that double or even triple speed up option, okay? Okay. And as for you, the viewer who's made it this far, thanks for watching, and remember to like, comment, subscribe, it helps a lot. I spent way too much time on writing and rewriting the script, getting the relevant recordings, so you can have a little fun fact for your troubles for making it this far. Goose and geese, foot and feet, tooth and teeth follow the German language rules, but moose's origin is from Native American language, so moose is a borrowed word in English, which is why its plural is not meese. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Peace.